Well, good morning or good evening, good afternoon, whatever time that you're watching this. This is Jason Hodge, and today we're talking about how do I make Babaghanouj recipe explained. And so let me go and pull up the pictures of the Babaghanouj that I was putting together. Hope you guys are having a great time. I'm having a really good time. It's really late or really early, however you want to look at it. And I was out last night, but daddy duty called. And so I had to get my kids fed and off to bed. And so by the time I was finished, I thought I was going to do a hangout right away, right? And I sat down, was ready to do it. And then the next thing I know, I was waking up and I was sitting in the chair and I said, oh, okay. I fell asleep. So anyway, let me get in here and kind of go through each one of these steps. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a definite foodie, and baba ganoush is actually one of my favorites, along with many other food items. And the reason is because it is such an easy recipe. I mean, it looks like it's a little more complex, and it can be. I mean, you can go in there and do a lot of interesting things with your baba ganoush. I mean, I've got a lot of different variations of baba ganoush, and this one is a little closer to my heart because from start to finish, every single aspect, aside from growing the ingredients myself, but it is each one of the aspects is handmade. So I make my own tahini, roast down the eggplants, saute the onions, the whole deal, and then I put it all together. And it seems like this should take a long time, but it really doesn't. I think that it takes the longest it takes is when I'm sitting there explaining it as I'm going through it and, kind of going through the process of snapping shots and all that. If I was just in there not doing any kind of pictures, not communicating while I was doing the work, it would literally take me from along with the tahini, all of that, I'd say no more than a half hour. And that is because the tahini takes a while to go from raw sesame seeds to the toasting and then the grinding. The grinding is going to take the longest because it goes from, uh, you know, the whole sesame seed being broken down into a paste. So it is definitely a not an arduous task, but you kind of watch. You have to watch it because you're mainly dealing with. Okay, let me do a screen share real quick. You're mainly dealing with making sure that you don't burn your sesame seeds. Burn your sesame seeds, and then you end up with some very bitter stuff. You don't want that. Not a good idea. Okay, so here we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got to say, this is so cool to be able to do these hangouts. Okay, so I'm sharing the screen now. Boom. All right, so the first thing that I start off with are the eggplants. Okay, now, these eggplants, they were nice size eggplants, and I took them. I got these from Trader Joe's, surprisingly enough. Usually, I don't like to get my produce from traders because they're kind of, but I'm selective when you go to traders. Just make sure that when you get the stuff, if you're getting something that's produce inside of a package, check all of the things before you go to the checkout counter, because you could end up getting home and the next thing you find some of the stuff is a little off. I've found that a number of times, and nothing against traders. That's just not one of their strong points. It's not. So Yeah, I prefer to get my produce from farmers markets if I'm not growing it myself, because we don't have our garden in yet at our new place. But I like to get the stuff from farmers markets, from farms or farmers, actually going to the physical farm. Grow it myself, of course, that's the number one. And then if I can't get it from any of those above ones, then I'll pop over to Whole Foods, some of the other markets that carry natural foods. There is, and depending on what area of the country that you're in, you may have a fresh store or a wild oats. Um, I don't know if Bristol Farms is still around or not. They used to have really good produce, and I used to love the layout of their store. It was a food artist's dream, the way that they laid everything out. So, anyway, so those are a few of the stores just offhand that you can get your things from, and it's you yeah you'll do very well by going about it that way. Okay, so anyway, on to what it is that I'm talking about here. So I take the eggplants and I roast them down. These ones, what I did was I took the eggplant, right? Washed them, of course. I took off a lot of the top, just peeled it off, and left the stem intact because I didn't want it to lose all of its juices out of the top. So I didn't break the skin or anything like that. I just took off the green part, as much of it, without damaging the fruit. And so I began to roast them down at 350 degrees for a few minutes, just to kind of get the heat going through them. And if I had a grill with some nice charcoal, maybe some hickory or applewood or one of the other woods to give it that nice smoky flavor, I would have taken the eggplants, put them on the grill, and smoked them down. Got that heat inside of them real nice, charred the skin beautifully, and then take them and put them into a container to let them finish cooking, the cooking process, steaming themselves through, releasing their liquids and some of the bitterness. And then I would use them inside of the Babaghanouj. And to that, when I do it that way, I do tend to leave a little bit of that charred skin on just for that nice smoky flavor, with the little flecks of char in there. I like that. Not everybody does. I happen to love it. Let me see if I'm going the right direction here when I click the next button. Okay, so as this thing is heating through, at a certain point, what I do is wrong picture. Sorry about that, guys. Beautiful wedding, by the way. Hey, John and Adrian, if you're watching this, okay, you just got your cameo. Okay, all right. So now, okay, uh, let me move up. I guess it's going in a different order there. Okay, so then what I do, I get the sesame seeds going, put them on the stove, and put it at medium to high heat. Not too high because I don't want to burn my sesame seeds. I don't want that bitter flavor getting into the sesame or any bird charred nothing, right? So I take the sesame seeds, toast them uh, lightly enough to just get the oils released so that when I go to grind them, they break down faster, more even, and I don't have to take as much time to break them down. Now, for those of you who are total raw foodists, you don't have to go about it that way. You don't have to go through and toasting them. It's just going to take a little longer to get through the process. Okay, so now if you notice here, I've toasted them down, and now they are nice golden brown. They are shiny and ready to be put into the food processor. I think I have one more picture of them in their toasting stage, possibly. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay. I took more pictures. I just didn't post them, which is good. All right. So, food processor, I just fill them up with the sesame seeds, as you see right here. And then I turn it on. I close it off, turn it on. You see how some of them are a little, not charred, but just deep golden brown. So I take those and just start blending away or processing away. Okay. As I'm processing, what ends up happening is that, first it goes to a crumble. A lot of steam is released because it's got a lot of heat with being on the stove. So that steam is released, but it doesn't affect the seeds or the process of tahini because that steam is rising to the top. At a certain point, I take the top off and just dab the underside of the top of the container just to get rid of the steam from collecting. And that way no water falls down in there. Okay, if you notice right here, it starts to, you know, form into a crumble. So the sesame seeds are breaking down and they are doing their thing. They're I don't want to say congealing or coagulating. They're not doing that because it's not liquid, but they are coming together into like almost like a cheese crumble, like a feta type of a crumble, right? And they're still a ways away from being done. Now here they have broken down further. Okay, see little beads of steam collecting, and so I wipe that down. Okay, but if you notice right here, now it has gotten into more of a liquid type of stage, right? And so I'm just letting it continue to go through the process of blending. Okay, now it is almost at that stage where it is tahini. If you notice right here, it is broken down, it's a liquid, but there's still some stuff up here that I've got to scrape down because I don't want any of these bits and pieces in the tahini to take the smoothness away from it. So I'm going to scrape it back down into the contents of the food processor so that it can blend some more to smooth those out as well. And so then this is what it looks like once I scrape it down. Okay, so see I'm scraping the sides down and this one's got that little crumble right there. And this I would say is probably the most time consuming of all of it because you've got to man it to make sure that you do get that smoothness. Okay, and so there's some of that crumble that or some of the sesame seeds that hadn't broken down that I scraped into the container just to get it ready for that last smoothing. See, time for the last smoothing. All right, so now in that last smoothing, and if you notice, it's a very simple recipe. Okay, basically raw sesame seeds, a skillet or a pot or a pan or whatever, enough that can hold it, and toast it down and blend it. I don't add any salt, no sugar, nothing, just the sesame seeds. Now the thing is that with sesame seeds, along with some of your other nuts and things like that, is that things like, for example, sugar or honey or whatever, you're not going to make tahini. What you're going to end up having, if it gets to that point, because it'll be kind of hard to get it to that point, you will end up with a halva. And you don't really want that when you're trying to get a nice smooth tahini. Halva is a very beautiful sesame seed candy, right? I tasted the best one years ago. I have never found it again. They brought it in from Greece. I was at one of the natural food chains that I used to participate and teach one of the culinary programs. I used to do the vegetarian cuisine, vegan cuisine with PCC markets. It's Puget Consumer Co-op. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to throw my hat in the ring to do another series of classes with them because I had an awesome time. Met a lot of great fellow chefs and cooks, and really connected with the community around vegetarian West Indian cuisine of all things. I did my first dish, my flagship dish with them was a kalaloo. And the kalaloo was, I'm totally off topic here, but go with me. This is foodie talk. Kalaloo is it's a green, greens. It's a type of stew that we have in the West Indies, at least in the Virgin Islands, and it's actually the tanya leaf or the taro leaf, but uh, they didn't have that out here. So what I substituted it with was collards and kale, and I think I used some spinach, different greens. And I definitely had, you have to have coconut milk and you have to have okra. If you don't have okra, it's not kalaloo. It's something else, but it's not kalaloo. Okay, so that was my side note, my trip down memory lane. Puget Consumer Co-op reminded me of that. Okay, so these are the eggplants. Once they have charred, and I've put them into the container, it's stainless steel container with a lid in order to let them steam down and kind of finish their cooking process. As they steam down, they release those liquids and they soften up. And you want them soft because there's nothing worse. Well, there's a lot of things that are worse, but for this dish, there's nothing worse than to have your eggplant not fully cooked and softened. Because what ends up happening is that if you don't soften it all the way, well, not only does the flavor not travel very well, but then you've got to take extra time cooking it down on the stovetop, which you're not supposed to have to do that. It's supposed to be easy. And also, it takes on that spongy kind of texture, which is going to be definitely an oil hog. When you go to cook it down at that stage, it's going to suck that oil into it, and you're not going to have the same texture for your babaghanouj. So you want to avoid that, and you want to make sure that it is charred properly and steamed properly so that it's soft to the touch, and you can just peel the skin off with your hands and take pretty much the whole eggplant, minus the top, put it into the pot or the skillet or whatever to break it down with your onions and peppers. Speaking of which, okay, so this is the eggplants after being skinned. It's very tasty. I could have eaten these things just like that, a little salt, a little oil. Okay, I digress. All right, so now I took some onions and I slivered the onions. I didn't want them chopped up or diced. Okay, this is very important for what it is that I'm doing with the babaghanouj. See, these onions, when they're slivered like this, I sliver them, salt them, I cook them down in coconut, not the olive oil. And what happens is that they sweeten up, but they maintain a certain amount of their texture, not the crunch, but they hold together in these strands, which plays very well to the strands of the eggplant. So it kind of marries texture for texture, and you're looking for that. You want that mouthfeel when you're putting together the babaghanouj. If you do it diced or minced or any other way, your texture is not going to be the same. Not that it won't taste good. It will taste good, but you're going to change the flavor profile just that amount by not slivering it. I like to sliver it. I like how it looks. I like the texture, and it works. Okay, so just trust me on this one. All right. All right, so now moving along, now you're seeing the onions taking on the caramelization. I love caramelized onions now. I could stay on this shot right here all day. I'm not going to, because you may not be an onion lover like I am. Now, I'm going to fight the urge of saying, if you're not an onion lover like this, to get off of this hangout immediately. I'm not going to say that, because you may be an onion lover in the making. So I'm not going to shut you out like that. But I just want you to know at some point in time, as we develop this rapport and relationship, you're going to have to embrace your inner onion lover. Okay. I just wanted you to know that you have to embrace your inner onion lover. Whatever it's going to take for you to do that, just know this: the majority of the things you're going to see me talk about in the savory world are going to have an onion or some garlic somewhere close by. So, this fair warning, okay? If you're not an onion lover, get a book, get some therapy, maybe some regressive work. I don't know. Do whatever you have to do. It's important. Now I add the peppers. The, with the peppers, you want to make sure that now I know some folks they have this thing about having frozen produce and whatnot, and yeah, in a perfect world, and if you happen to be in pepper season, which we're not, you could by rights get a hold of some fresh peppers that you can cut down yourself, slice them down and whatnot. I didn't have that option, so I went to my freezer and I pulled out a bag of the melange trois that Traders sells. It's three different types of peppers sliced inside of a bag and it's frozen. It's great. Now I know for some they say, okay, well, don't put frozen stuff into your pan when you're frying things down. Well, it's never hindered anybody from partaking of the food that I make, and I do it all the time. So I think that that's an urban legend. It's not going to kill your dish at all. It'll be fine. Trust me. Okay, so here you go. You saute those peppers down, and then we're going to move up to the next. Oh, yes. Goodness gracious. Okay, so now you're seeing that the peppers they're broken down. The onions are broken down. They're still intact. They have not turned to mush, but they're broken down. I've got some seasonings going on in there. A little dill seed, a little dill weed. I know I'm a dill person. I love dill. Of course, the pink Himalayan salt, little cumin. Uh, I mean, you can go a number of ways with this. Some chipotle. I put some chipotle in there because of course, I didn't have the smokiness of the grill. I didn't have the benefit of the grill, so I manufactured my own smoke, and I did that by adding the ground chipotle pepper, and it works beautifully. Okay, moving on. Isn't this just beautiful? I mean, to actually have this thing broken down to where you're hearing this thing explained. If you were to do this, if you were to make this recipe, anybody who has good taste would instantly love you. They would. They would really. Trust me. Okay, so now I've added the eggplant, the skinned eggplant, and it doesn't look like much to look at right there. I mean, unless you really have the vision for food, and then you could look at something like this and say, but I know where it's going, so it's not going to be unappetizing. So I add the eggplant, a little of the juice of the eggplant as well, and then continue along the road. Okay. And then I got the potato masher and began to mash away, mashing the eggplant and incorporating it with the peppers, the onions, and spices, and I reduced the heat because I don't need to really cook it anymore. It's already cooked. The onions and peppers are already cooked. I just need to maintain the heat. So I reduced the heat to around a medium, in between medium and low, like 3/4 of the way, where you are not at the low end, but at the high end, just under medium. Okay, moving along, I then add. Okay, just waiting for the computer to catch up with me. Okay, so now, okay, yeah, so, okay, so you saw me mash it. That's a little bit more of the mash. And, it's coming together. It's looking beautiful. It's perfect for dips, perfect for chips, perfect for pitas or chapatis, and today it was perfect, or yesterday it was perfect for bow tie pasta. So now, uh, continuing to move through the process. Okay, what I realized is that on my Instagram, I did not upload that picture. Okay, so what I did here was I added some of that tahini. Now, I put about 5 tablespoons in. You don't want to put too much of the tahini because you don't want to compete with the flavor and have the extra bitterness of the tahini overtake your dish. So for anywhere from 3 to 5 nice sized tablespoons is enough. I put it into the middle and I began to mash from the middle and incorporate all of the sides into the middle as I'm mashing it to give it that nice smooth texture and that creaminess throughout the whole dish. It is an amazing thing when you do that. I'm telling you, it's so good. Now, what you want to do, the minute that you go to put the eggplant into the skillet, right? A matter of fact, I think even before that, when you go to start sauteing your onions and peppers and all of that, I'd say by the time the peppers go in, you should have the pot of water already boiling, rapid boil. You should be putting your pasta in. And that way, everything finishes at the same time. The pasta is going to take you 15 minutes. So you basically backtrack 15 minutes from the time that your baba ganoush is going to be finished. That pasta should be coming out of the water, draining and ready to go, ready to incorporate. So we found a really good pasta, at least good as far as we're concerned, from Costco. It's an organic brand. Actually, Costco has been doing some really cool things with some of the pastas that they've been bringing in. Every now and then they'll bring in specialty things that you don't see all of the time. And I think what they do is they tend to preview things to see how well it goes over, and they kind of do a test market to see if it's going to be a tradition, a standard inside of the store. Sometimes it is just the preview. They go through and do a traveling road show with the different things from appliances to massage chairs to food stuff. And, and you can only get it at that time over that weekend or over the 10 days they're previewing it. And then after that, it's done until they come back or until you run into them again at another Costco. So I saw this the other day. We had gotten this before. We used the fusilli last time in another dish. I did another salad, another pasta salad. So I used the fusilli for that one. And I, took some olives and raisins and onions and mango and passion fruit, they like a jelly made out of it, and a little of the coconut oil and fresh herbs and spices and all that. Mixed it together and olives, right? Fried it all up, and then took those and threw them into our blender and did a coarse blend, and that was what I used as a dip. as well as what I use to glaze my garbanzo beans that I cooked the other day. Very good stuff. Okay, so another side note. That's what happens when you start talking to a foodie who does not have a particular end goal in mind other than sharing what he did with a dish that he loved. Okay, so here we go. So I let the water boil and then I incorporated the pasta into that water, and it was simply off the chain good. It's good quality pasta. Now, don't get me to lying. I'm not a pasta aficionado. Okay, I'm still learning. I'm still learning my pastaology, pastology, or however you want to call it. But got the water to a rapid boil. You see right here. I won't enlarge that. You know what boiling water looks like, I hope. Okay, and then I incorporated the pasta. Popped that pasta in there, and then I set that timer for 15 minutes and let it go. 15 minutes later, I started cleaning up the kitchen and all that. 15 minutes later, I was draining the pasta. Here we go. Look at that. Beautiful. It was good. Okay, so I was draining the pasta and getting the Babaghanouj ready to plate. Actually, I was tasting it under the guise of getting it ready. Wink, wink. Yeah, I knew that tasted good, but I just wanted an excuse to eat some of that Babaghanouj. And today, I was in Traders, or yesterday I was in Traders, grabbing, the stuff for the Babaghanouj. I had no idea I was going to do Babaghanouj until I was almost out of Traders, and I saw the eggplants, and they looked so good, and they were calling my name, so I grabbed 3 of them. And I overheard this gentleman inside of Traders talking about this black truffle oil and how they only bring it in, I think, like once a year or whatever, around a certain time, which is probably now, since I picked some up. And he was just talking about how phenomenal this was. So I said, okay, well, let me grab a couple of bottles just in case, because you don't want to miss out on a good foodie thing, especially when you hear other foodies talking about it. You take notice. So I grabbed a couple of bottles, and then I drizzled this over the pasta after they were cooked and plated. Man, it was good. It was extremely good. I was pleasantly not surprised. I expected it to be good, but I just didn't know what to expect as far as the flavor. So it was good. It's very good flavor. Tasty. Extremely tasty. Okay, so then I put a dollop of the Babaghanouj right in the middle of that pasta that had been drizzled with the truffle oil. And then I finished it off with some dried dillweed and another drizzle of the oil, and I was done. That was so good. Okay, so now this looks like a very sensible meal, right? What I did to this afterwards, after I snapped that picture, because there was absolutely no way that was going to fill me up. So I probably put another 2 servings of that Babaghanouj, like how you see it, to where it mounded on my plate. And I was like, okay, now we're talking. So just to let you know, yeah, I like to make pretty dishes. I don't like to eat pretty dishes. I like big food. So I made that dish big food after I was finished with it. Now, granted, if you're doing a multi-course meal, well, that's totally different. That would suffice. Like that would be almost too much if you're doing a multi-course meal. I did a 8-course meal for some friends of ours. It was their wedding reception, pre-wedding dinner, right? And so yeah, it was 8 courses, wonderful courses, and folks were stuffed because when you get 8 different entrees being brought to you, from your appetizers to your main courses and the stuff in between, palate cleansers, blah blah blah, you get full. So you need to stretch that out for several hours, which is what we did. in order for, you know, the food to settle and for them to be able to move on to the next thing and actually enjoy the food instead of it just being a lot. When you're doing food, especially high-end food, you want every bite to be enjoyed. If you don't make it in a way where every bite is enjoyed, like if you're, chefing for somebody, it's kind of like a failed day. It's like a letdown, because it was like, well, what was all of that for? I mean, you could have just put a feed bag on if you're just gonna slop food around. But when you're doing food, you really want each bite to be an experience. And so that's why when I cook, I like to take each one of the ingredients and treat it like it is like it is its own meal. You know, I season my onions and my pasta a certain way. Because I feel that every bite, if somebody were to take a bite of the food and it didn't happen to have some sauce on it, it still should have some flavor that is complementary to the dish, where it doesn't taste bland, where you need the other components in order to make it taste all right. Now, a different thing is like if you're doing some curry, like for example, my wife and my kids and I, we love Thai curry. Well, some of those components need to be bland because the curry may be so intense in flavor in the first place. So then you need something to draw off some of that flavor, like the rices or the cellophane noodles if you're at a different restaurant or whatever. You utilize the blandness of other foods in order to counterbalance the excessive seasonings and aromatics of certain dishes, because other than that it will be just too overwhelming. I don't know if you've ever tried to eat just the curry sauce by itself without having that buffer. It's pretty intense. Extra salty, extra sweet, it's just a lot. So when you combine it with something that's a little more bland, a little more subdued, then it makes the dish work perfectly. So with that said, that would be the only reason why I would leave the pasta more bland or whatever. But the baba ganoush was not so overly seasoned that it did that. So I was able to put a little seasoning to the pasta without it changing the flavor or taking away from the dish or competing with the focal point of the dish, which was the baba ganoush. All right, so there you have it. That is how I put together my baba ganoush. I hope that was clear. So I'm going to recap real quick. So for the baba ganoush, I took the eggplants, roasted them down, charred the skin real nice, put them into a container, let it sweat down, drained off the excess liquid, took the skin off once they steamed down and were cooked, steamed all the way through. I took in the skillet, or frying pan, I slivered onions, one onion. It was about a large, medium-sized onion. Sounds a little strange, large, medium, right? But it's a large, medium-sized onion. I slivered it down, the whole thing, and then I added that to the skillet with the coconut oil. I did have a little bit of olive oil in there just to use the rest that was in the container, but olive oil, coconut oil was the predominant oil in there. Onions, the pink Himalayan salt, some of the other seasonings like the dill weed, dill seed. I put the dill weed in towards the end because I didn't want to burn that herb. I took the peppers, put those in there, frozen peppers, and I used about, I'd say around a cup and a half, okay? And once those broke down with the onions, I added the eggplant, a little more salt after I mashed it down, and then I added at the end I added around 5 tablespoons of the tahini, the homemade tahini, and mashed it around again. It was done. I cooked my pasta, water, salt, pasta in 15 minutes, done. Drizzled it with the truffle oil and the tahini to make that. I toasted up the sesame seeds, put them in the food processor, ground it down into that liquidy paste, and then use that in the baba ganoush. And that's it. I mean, it really is that simple. It's not hard at all. Now, when you get it more complex, as you make it more complex, what ends up happening is that you start doing variants. You add different ingredients, different spices. You might grind some spices up. You may even say, okay, let me do a version that is kind of like bending towards the Indian curry flavor, to where it's now no longer the Mediterranean feel with the baba ganoush. Now you take on the Indian flair with some of the more intense curry flavors. I've done it that way. It tastes phenomenal. Uh, it's just that, and you can eat it with the pita. It's just that it is a very strong dish, and so again, you take that with some rice, whether it be the white basmati or the brown basmati or the pari rice, which I love pari rice. Those rice grains are like about an inch to an inch and a half thick. It's amazing. I've never, until I ate over my friend's house, seen rice that long. It just, you have to, if put it on your bucket list. If you've never seen rice that was over an inch long, put it on your bucket list that you must see it, try it, eat it. Okay, and it tastes phenomenal, especially when you do it in the traditional Iranian style, where they get the nice crush, that golden crust on the bottom of the rice when they turn it out onto the rice server. Oh my goodness. Anyway, okay, another story. All right, so this has been Jason Hodge. Let me pop back to my screen so you can see my face. And yeah, look at that. It's tasty. Here we go. Okay, so I don't know if here we go. All right, so there it is. If you haven't got the clue yet, I am a serious food lover. I absolutely love the conversation of food. I love working with food. I love exploring food. I love the nuances of food. Actually, one of my I don't want to say bucket list, because I don't want to just do this once. I want this to be definitely a part of my internal culture, right? And that is this, I've got this thing. I was talking to one of my best friends about this global food tour, right? Now, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. That yeah, I want to do that soon. Just pop to different parts of the world just to explore the cuisine. Now, it may be a little difficult, being that I am a vegetarian, pretty much vegan, right, for the most part, except for I do eat honey and some of the other things. So that does preclude me from going under the total vegan category. But yeah, there's something about, exploring different cuisine and culture, and then using the items of different cultures in your own way, which is what I do a lot. I go to a lot of different stores, from, your global type markets, where I find some really good German items and Indian items, Nepalese items. I was on a hunt for Nepal cuisine a while back, items a while back, because we had some friends that were going to do a dinner for a fundraiser, and it was focused around Nepal, right? Because they were going to Nepal. So we did a preview meal for them, where we did some of the traditional meals of Nepal, the vegetarian ones, and they were blown away. So anyway, all of that to say is that I absolutely am looking forward to doing a global food tour. And so I don't know how that's going to map out. I don't really care how it's going to map out, just so long as it maps out. All right. So that's me rambling right now. I hope that you enjoyed this hangout. I know I did. I got a lot out of it. And I will catch you a little later. If you want more information about what it is that I do inside the kitchen, or if you're one of those folks who happen to know me in another business sense, as a media planner, and you're wanting to know how to move your business to the next level. What are some of the things that you need to be doing online? What should you be looking for? What type of research should you be doing? What type of training should you be taking in? Go ahead, connect with me. You're on my blog right now, thejasonhodge.info. And if you click on the link, I've got a system actually in place that is a great system if you're looking for a way to monetize, meaning way to make money online. And it's I don't want to say push button simple, because I don't want to give you the impression that there's no work involved. There is work involved, but the work is quite different once you have a system that is a sound system and in place, that where you can move your traffic through, and qualified individuals who are looking for that opportunity to take their life back into their own hands and to create more revenue streams for themselves, to either supplement their income or to replace their income, and to do things, stuff that you love. I'm sitting here talking about being able to put an opportunity in front of all of the listeners who come through. It's kind of like a no-brainer. So anyway, all of that to say that if that's something that you're looking for, a way to supplement your income and to connect people with what it is that they're already looking for in the way of how to create more revenue streams, how to supplement their income or replace their income, how to retire from their jobs early or whatever, or how to start a new career online, how to market online, some of the proven techniques, training around that, then go ahead and click on the link below this video. And it should be towards the bottom of this screen, this post. And click on the link, and then it's going to take you over to another one of my sales funnels and the products, one of the product lines that I promote and I support, and that supports me. So anyway, I will catch you later. Thanks for tuning in for this hangout. I had a good time. Hopefully you did too. All right, catch you later. Bye-bye.